All right. Well, here we go. You guys got to let me know if our audio is running here. Okay. Is it distorted? It looks really distorted on my system here. Let's see if I can figure this out here. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. That should be better. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Okay, give me one more thumbs up, everybody. Make sure before I get into my big, long diatribe at the beginning. I'm going to play the track one more time. Okay, you guys got this? Beauty. Wow. It's always something when you're in a new room, getting set up in a new city, in a new, all the stuff. Well, here we are. How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully our time zone shift here. I know I've done a couple since I've been in Nashville, but I keep on moving the times, and I know everybody keeps yelling at me saying we're all over the world and you can't pick a good time zone, but unfortunately, this is kind of the time that works best for me at this point. And you know what? That's why the videos typically go live and then get posted afterwards. So, okay, let's dig in. Now that I've settled down from my technical difficulties, as you know, it happens. Couple quick notes, housekeeping. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, if you're watching and you haven't hit the subscribe button, you won't be able to participate in the chat. And if you wait to hit the subscribe button until you want to say something, it's going to take 5 minutes for YouTube to let you into the chat. So hit it now, please. I don't think there's any downside to subscribing on a YouTube channel, is there? Like, it's not like you get spammed by anything, right? I don't think so. I mean, I kind of don't hit the subscribe stuff on a lot of things, and I've started to, and I don't notice any difference. So I don't think there's any downside, guys. Come on. I saw somebody in the chat say hit the like button as well. I guess that does something with the algorithm that, gets us some more views or shares or whatever. So yeah, hit that too. Awesome. I do have some really great news that I want to share with everybody, and bear with me on the passive-aggressive sales pitch. But back in June, when I was still in Vancouver, I did a production workshop where I went into the Armory Studios, recorded a band. There were some students there live, attendees live with us as we did it. And then once the production process was done, once the recording was done, I brought all those tracks back to my place. And over the last few months, I've been editing and mixing and basically filming the entire process. It was way more work than I thought it was going to be. I'm like, oh yeah, I produce songs all the time. But producing songs while talking about producing songs and making sure that you're explaining what you're doing and hoping to be informative and educational, that's a completely different skill set. And damn, do I have some mad respect for the guys out there who are doing like straight up tutorials. That is hard. I was just doing what I do and trying to shed some light on what I do while I was doing it. But even that, man, it's difficult. So long story short, the final mix is done. We are done. And so I have passed all the audio and video. Everything has gone off to be edited and packaged together. And hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe end of Q1, beginning of Q2 of this year, I will have my very first ever production, mixing, all the stuff. It's a production course. It's top to bottom, pre-production to final mix. And I might even have a little special something when it comes to the very last stage that I typically don't do, but I have the fortunate benefit of being able to have some of the best guys in the world master my projects, and I might have a little bonus segment with one of my favorite mastering guys. So you'll have to wait and see. That's a I don't want to say a promise. It's not a promise, but it's something that I'm aiming for. So hopefully that comes to fruition. So anyways, back to what I was saying. I'm going to have this production course for sale on my website. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you will get a special offer. We're going to put together a beta testing group. You still have to pay for it, but basically it's going to be discounted. And you're also going to get some extra bonuses for basically volunteering to be some of the first people to go through it and give us some feedback. Let us know if there's any issues, if something's not clear that we need to clarify, stuff like that. Basically, I want to have a little bit of a test group with people from our community who are customers of this type of thing. So keep an eye out for an email with kind of a invite offer for that. If you're not subscribed, I saw somebody put Mr. Ted Jensen's name in the comments there. Maybe we'll have to see. Anyways, yes. So subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you will be part of the offer for the kind of the beginning rollout, kind of the soft launch, beta launch, if you will. And then once that's kind of done, we make any tweaks, then it will be going out to the world. And so, yeah, I don't know how many hours of footage it's going to end up being, and it's going to be like a course. So you're going to, log in and you work through it. There might even be a purchase option. We're still trying to figure out all of our different kind of offers. But I really want to do one that includes some group calls where once you get through the course or once you get through a certain stage, then I'll jump on just like this. I'll jump on a live call with, 20 or 15 people who bought the course and who are working through it. And we can talk about, things that they're trying, things that they want to know that maybe they want some more details on. Being able to almost be like you're there live, the kind of the next best thing. And then once you're finished, do another follow-up call. So we're hoping to get all that stuff figured out in the next month or two. It's a lot of work, guys. Like I said, I have mad respect for people who do this for a living, and some of the YouTubers out there who like are just straight up tutorial guys. Like, wow, it's a whole other skill set that I don't know if I completely possess. We will see. You guys will tell me. I'm sure you'll tell me if it's any good or not. But the one thing I do know is the guys who were there and attended live, and that was just for the recording process. They haven't gotten the all the editing and the mixing stuff yet. But being there in person, the feedback from them was, I mean, it was more than I ever thought it would be. I think ultimately, you kind of go into a session, especially with something like this, you go into it hoping that everything's going to go super smooth and everything is going to just fall into place. And especially when you have people in the room who are there to learn from you and see how this whole thing goes down. And it was probably one of the most real world examples of maybe sessions that you guys might you guys might experience yourself. And so it turned into something completely different. I thought it was going to be a very much like, watch me produce a band and everything's going to go smooth and just watch me do my thing. And, it's going to be all the stuff that you think you're going to learn. Well, there were a bunch of challenges and a bunch of things that we had to work through along the way that it ended up being, there were lessons within the lessons. Like it wasn't so much here, let me show you how to mic up a kick drum, but it was like, okay, well, we're not quite getting what we need here. What do you do as a producer? How do you work through it? If you have a technical problem, how do you get through that? And it was so real world. Like, I didn't plan for these things to happen. They happened, and you get to see me. You get to see me work through them. And so we are not going to be editing out a lot of the trouble and the challenges and the kind of the road bumps along the way. That is real life. That's what a lot of YouTubers and a lot of the kind of other programs out there don't show you. That stuff gets edited out. And for good reason. Some of it was hard. Some of it was painful. Some of it was, we didn't know if we were going to get what we needed to get, or we were running out of time, or we were working late. And, it's just like all those things that happen. That's what it's real. So, okay, enough with the sales pitch. Just keep an eye out for it. I think you guys are going to dig it. It's not, so, here's how you do A, B, C. But like, it's a little bit more like if you were an assistant at a studio and got to spend the whole session in the room with me, watching what I do and watching me work through that and going through that process with me. That's what this course is. And so, I'm hoping you guys dig it. So keep an eye out for that. Okay. Shall we begin? Got my beverage for the night. Unleaded. Oh, I could so go for a good bottle of wine. In a different environment today. This is my new room. I rented a studio in a really awesome part of Nashville. This is the first time in a long time that my studio hasn't been in my house, or at least on my property. It's bizarre. It's weird. I feel like an adult, getting up in the morning and dropping my kids off at school and driving to work and coming in and saying hi to everybody and going home, and I actually have to get dressed and just mess up my hair, but in a less messy way, and brush my teeth, all that stuff. So yeah, I feel like an adult. It's kind of bizarre, but it's good. The room's awesome. A few people have already reached out to me asking. I'm in an area called 12 South, which is a really awesome area. It's a publishing company that built out a bunch of production rooms for their writers, and they had a room that was available. And a friend who's a writer who's published by them said, "Hey, I think they might want to rent one out if you wanted to just kind of like lock it out, move in type thing." And so I figured I'd give it a try, and it's working out awesome. Still getting my lighting and video situation sorted, so bear with me on that. I know it's everything's very gray and white and black, which is kind of that's kind of like my thing anyways. So, but yeah, I'll work on that, and we'll get that everything looking a little better and tweaked out over the next little bit. But yeah, I've been working hard trying to get everything set up. And the other thing that I have on the itinerary, it's probably not going to be live, but I have yet to kind of shoot my room and with Room EQ Wizard and measurement microphones and move some speakers around and move mix position around, do all that stuff. I've yet to do that. I set up in my best guess of what would work based off of my years of doing this in other rooms. And it sounds pretty good in here, but I think it can be a little bit better. There's still a few little issues that I'm hearing. So I'm going to document. I've already filmed as I was moving in and setting up, and I kind of talked through some of that. I've already filmed that, and I'm going to film shooting the room and kind of tweaking it out and sharing those results with you guys as well. So that probably won't be live, but I'll be sharing that, and then maybe we can do a follow-up and ask questions on that. So. Okay, where should we start? Did anybody in the chat get to go to NAMM this year? If you did, hopefully you either missed NAMMthrax or you're already over it. Fuck, I used to get sick every year, no matter what I did. And it's funny, I saw somebody online said, "Oh, I last time I got NAMMthrax was 2020, and I'm like, hey, I hate to tell everybody, but 2020 NAMMthrax was COVID. I know it was a couple months before COVID, but I got it, and I will bet whatever piece of gear in this room, that what I had in January of 2020 was COVID. Anyways, not to put a damper on a good night, but I didn't go to NAMM this year. Just too busy with life, work, moving into the studio. We're still kind of getting settled in Nashville. We're actually moving again. We ended up getting a place like a couple blocks away from where we currently are, but there's just so much going on with work and family and just stuff that unfortunately NAMM wasn't in the cards for me this year. Next year, you can pretty much count on me being there, and I'm hoping to maybe do some panels or some presentations. So it as it was going on, I was just sitting here feeling so anxious about not being there. And I tried not to bum out too much and, peek online too much about all the new stuff that was coming out and how much fun everybody was having seeing everybody. But I couldn't help myself. It's an addicting, social media is addictive for a reason, and NAMM and all that fun stuff. I just like being around, like, people is the best part of NAMM. It's like everybody's there, and not everybody, but a lot of people are there. It's a great place, great time to catch up, and all these people that we typically interface with online, like even here, I probably would have met a bunch of people who are part of the email subscriber list and all that stuff. So anyways, would have loved to have been there, but I wasn't. So today I figured, you know what? I've been just scouring the internet for new gear, checking out new things, looking at new, press releases and YouTube videos and reviews, all the stuff of some cool new things. And so instead of doing it by myself, I figured we'd do a little bit maybe a kind of a little bit of a NAMM wrap up, even though I wasn't there. And then also show you guys some of the plugins and some of the tools some of the new stuff that I've implemented into my template over the last, I don't know, 3, 4, 6 months, and some upcoming stuff. I've got an awesome plugin that I don't know yet. I haven't seen a video on the plugin yet. So this might be a YouTube debut. And I'm going to give you a sneak preview right now, but we're not going to dig into it till later. Oh, cliffhanger. Okay, ready? I'm going to hit it real fast. Ready? One. No, it's not an amp sim from me. I wish it was. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, what's that? Ooh, did you guys see it? You guys know what it is? I've had this for maybe a couple weeks. It's awesome. It's well, I'll leave it at that. We'll come back to it. Anyways, so I figured I'd just kind of go through. I've just been getting a lot of gear questions, and I figured, you know what? Let's do this together. Let's go through and I'll share my thoughts because, why they're in my head and I'm going to share them with somebody anyway, so I might as well share them with everybody. So here we go. Yep, it is the Bendeth Verb from Make Believe Audio or Make Believe Studios. It's awesome. Okay, so let's start with some gear wrap up or some NAMM wrap up here. I'm just going to pull up web browser here. I've just gone through and I've kind of highlighted. I've just created tabs in my web browser here of things that have really caught my eye, and just kind of talk a little bit about why. And would love any questions as they pop up. I'm trying to kind of keep an eye on everything at the same time here. I've got my chat down here. I've got obviously my camera and all my screen up here. So anyways, all right. So first of all, let's start with audio interfaces. There was a couple of new audio interfaces out there this year that I thought were really interesting, and started having this conversation with a friend of mine, and I'm like, no, just watch the live stream. Wait, I don't want to have this conversation. Let me do it with everybody watching. So, Grace Design released an interface that looks incredible. And I love Grace Design. I've been using their mic preamps for a long time. Probably the first time I used it was in like 2001, the 8-channel 801 maybe. And my mic I've got an 8-channel, not the big one, the big silver one. I've got the one space rack. I think it's the 108, the 8-channel. I love their stuff. I know a lot of people use their monitor controller. Like this is like the Grace Design stuff is as good as it gets. And so the fact that they made an interface, it kind of amazes me that they hadn't made one up until this point. Maybe they did, and I just wasn't aware of it. But this to me has got me salivating. And I know interfaces are kind of like, kind of geeky, right? But this looks pretty awesome. For me, obviously, I'm a Pro Tools guy, so having something that has the Avid interface, the DigiLink interface is a must. I don't know if you guys can see it there. Obviously, you can go to their website and check this out. But like, look at all this I/O. And I'm assuming this is kind of like the Matrix, where I think you probably buy the frame and then load in the different slots as you need them, which is great because for a guy like me, I do a lot of mixing in the box, but I do need some extra I/O for a summing amp. I need some extra I/Os for hardware inserts, so I can kind of load up what I need. I don't need as many ADs as I do DAs because of the summing amp. So like being able to configure this is huge. I can only imagine that the converters in this thing are going to be awesome. I know the converters in their monitor controller, their DA is really, really good. I right now use a Matrix Studio, which is the DAD converters, and I love that. I love the workflow, and I do love the Matrix and the DAD stuff, and you know the whole software Matrix Matrix. It looks similar to this. This looks a little bit more refined, which is nice. Like I like the look of this better, and it looks like you probably have some more routing options, and I don't know. This looks really cool to me. It's got Dante. I mean, this is kind of like the Matrix. This is Grace's version of the big Matrix, and so I'd be really, really, really interested to hear this. I'm assuming, I don't see anything, but I'm assuming that they are going to have some sort of remote control. Maybe they're going to make kind of like a non-audio version of this that interfaces with it. Actually, now that I see, maybe this is just going to plug right into it. Where is that? Is there no, I'm not seeing it. Thought maybe there would be a remote control. Anyways, doesn't matter. This looks really cool. I'm going to be testing one of these as soon as they're available. So I will let you know. Shane in the chat says, I don't want to know how good it is. Yeah, I know. This is probably not going to be cheap. Grace is, like I said, it's top-notch stuff. They make it really, really, it's well-made, well-constructed. Yeah, looks good. There's all the stats. You guys can go check it out. But I have a lot of, I still use optical ins and outs for certain things. I use ASEBU for certain things. I obviously use all the analog stuff, but I also use Dante. So on the Matrix Studio, I maxed out. I have no more room. So this, if I need to expand, it's either going to be going to the big boy Matrix or something like this. So the other thing, where did I put it? It's in here somewhere, right? The other thing that I saw that I thought was interesting, again, kind of surprised that they haven't done this yet, is SSL released, or they announced, I don't know how quick some of this stuff gets to market, but they are doing a rack mount kind of more fully functional interface as well. And I know a lot of people who bought their little interfaces, like these guys down here. I know a lot of people who bought these for like mobile rigs and and or just having like a secondary rig. And now that I'm in a studio, I actually have to probably get something like that for my house, just so if I'm at home, I can pull stuff up and edit, and if I've got song ideas, I can at least lay them down at home. But I love the fact that they're doing like a fully function, like I would say like this is Apollo's stiffest competition yet. And I like the fact that somebody is actually putting something out there that is challenging the Universal Audio Apollo rack mount stuff. I feel like there's been, I don't want to talk shit here. This channel's not about talking shit, but if I will say really quickly, I've had some experiences with Universal Audio where I sometimes feel like they're immune to what everybody else, all the other pro audio companies have to deal with. For instance, I remember back in the day when it was DigiDesign, you had to have Pro Tools hardware in order to run the software. And everybody was up in arms. Oh, this is bullshit, blah, 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 blah. Well, as soon as Universal Audio does it, and you had to buy their interfaces to get their cards or their whatever to get access to the software, nobody really complained about that. And they charged a fortune for the plugins. And every month I would get, or every 3 months I would, even after I bought the ultimate bundle, which is supposed to be everything, which was like $7,000, they'd release a couple plugins like 4 months later and send me, oh, here, buy this new plugin for another $179. And I'm like, you know what? People bitch and complain about Waves selling plugins for $29, yet somehow Universal Audio gets away with selling plugins for $200 and that runs on their hardware only, and nobody bats an eye. So I feel like there's a little bit of like maybe they've felt like they've been a little bit untouchable for the last little bit, and I think this is going to be some stiff competition. That's probably going to maybe make Universal Audio maybe rethink a little bit of their superiority complex. They make great stuff. I mean, we're going to open a session today, and there's Universal Audio stuff all over the place. They make awesome plugins. I still have a bunch of their hardware. I still run off the DSP card. Like I said, I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying, well, the reason when I saw this, I don't need this. What made me really be like, wow, this is cool, is now when clients call and say, hey, I'm getting a new interface for my studio. What do I get? I need, 8 mic preamps. I need 16 outs. I need a monitor controller, all the stuff of this. The only real I don't want to say real good option, but the only option that I was really like letting people know about, or, the thing that everybody seemed to get was the Apollo rack. And so anyways, the other thing is I couldn't find it on their website. They released like an expander unit as well. It's over here, I think. And so it's like an extra 8 channels. I don't think it's here. Where is it? Let me see. Music production. But I'm wondering if you can use those 8 channels. Like I'm like, was that just are those light pipe? How do they hook up? I'm not sure, but I'm wondering if you could get the expansion unit just for other interfaces, which could be cool. So I know there are a bunch of other interfaces, but those are the ones that caught my eye for a variety of reasons. And so I figured I'd highlight those. I'm going to hit the chat really quickly here. The SSL 2 Plus works great. Yeah, like I said, these little guys, and apparently the converters sound really good. Kind of is the form that a lot of people like, the function that a lot of people like. So the new rack is only $1,200. Yeah, again, it's kind of priced. It's priced straight at the it's the Apollo 8. I can't even keep track anymore. But it's like priced straight at that. The interesting thing that I'm curious about is how they do their software integration. I know they wanted to use that the SSL 360 app, which I've actually used a bit, and just with Pro Tools, and it's pretty cool. So I think that's supposed to kind of take the place of the console. I can't tell you how many people and I'm trying not to shit talk Universal Audio, but I'm just being honest. so many of my clients who are in the universal audio ecosphere, for some reason, always have some sort of issue with the console app. I've got one client who needs to switch the sample rate all the time. Like he'll start playing and it just goes, and then he just turns the sample rate to 44.1 and then back to 48, and it fixes the problem. He does this every day, sometimes twice a day. Sent emails to support. They're like, yeah, whatever. So this is like, I think, like I said, these guys are going to do some battle. And ultimately for me, like I have no dog in the race. I don't use either of them, but I love healthy competition. And it's really obvious to me when there are companies out there. I mean, we probably see them all the time in other walks of life, but when there are companies out there in the pro audio world that don't have any competition, real competition, not some like, kind of niche, kind of, esoteric, like company making other stuff that's kind of similar. I'm like real competition. Healthy competition kind of helps refocus people's priorities and companies' priorities and also make them deliver better products and better service. So this is the fact that now there's like a high quality 8-channel or 16, whatever it is, from a good reputable company. There's something else out there in the same price range and the same feature set and hopefully sounds good. I love it. I think it's great. So, somebody in the chat mentioned moving on to Antelope. Yes. So I haven't checked out the Antelope stuff for a long time. I did years ago when, I'm trying to remember what the interface was. Was it Orion? I can't remember. I did try one out and it worked well. I just ended up going with the Matrix Studio instead. Just because the way it's Avid, everything lives in the same thing. Yeah, Orion, that was the one I checked out. So, Antelope's making some great stuff. I'm not sure. Are they a little more expensive than like the Universal Audio what this SSL is going to be? I'm not sure, but yeah, somebody mentioned why are they too lazy to re-release the LA3A? I don't know, and I'm sure if you ask them about it, they'd give you some real pompous, condescending answer. Don't like the console, but UAD makes great sense. 1176 Wave is better as I mean it does make sense. It's just a matter of I feel like there hasn't been any competition, so they kind of just got a little kind of, I don't know, lazy is not the right word, but anyways, audience stuff. Hey John, how's it going, buddy? Audience stuff is awesome. And they did release looked like a really awesome interface as well. Sorry, I actually didn't pull that one up. Maybe I should. Let me pull that one up. Because they do actually make really great stuff. So I'm going to flip back to this here. My internet is working overtime, streaming, browsing the internet, probably a bunch of other stuff. Okay, well, whenever that loads, I'll tell you about it. Okay, while we're on the shit talking, no, we're not shit talking. It's all positive. It's all positive. Oh no. Oh, here we go. This plugin. So there's been a lot of interesting conversation about this. As most of you guys know, Make Believe Studios did their mix head, I don't know, however many months ago. Like, it's been out for a while. And I've been using it since before it was released, and I like it a lot. Is it exactly like the one that was in the hardware? I don't know. I never saw the one that was in the hardware. I never heard it. I don't know. I know the Make Believe one sounds awesome, and for what it does it really well, and it's flexible to where you can kind of tweak it to your own thing. Anyways, I saw some of the rhetoric or commentary about this plugin. And again, preface, I love the Plugin Alliance plugins. A lot of them. I use a lot of them. I think I own all of them, or I own most of them, and have also been subscribing to their annual thing. So it's like, this isn't, again, me shit talking, but it's interesting to me that the sales pitch for this was, well, we went and got the original code, so that's what makes it better. And it made me start to think about, well, what about all the other plugins that Plugin Alliance sells that either was analog or is digital, but they didn't get the code. They just they just wrote. Like, does that all of a sudden mean that anything that's not built from the original code sucks? Like, that can't be the case. So if Make Believe went and modeled their mix head the same way that Plugin Alliance goes and models, an 1176 or, a SSL bus compressor or whatever they've got. Like, I don't understand how that's inferior all of a sudden. Like, their entire product line up until this has basically been kind of like modeled and captured, probably in a variety of ways, but like, I don't know. It seemed really odd to me, and I didn't really hear anybody talk about that. I didn't really hear anybody say, "Oh, okay, so if you're modeling stuff by doing captures, all of a sudden it's shit. It's not any good." Like, is that what you're saying? Because you sell 200 other plugins that you guys have been doing that for 10 years, and all your SSL channel strips and all your Focusrite and APIs and all that stuff. All that stuff is captured and modeled. It's not an inferior way of doing things. That's the only way to do things until this. But anyways, the marketing rhetoric just made it sound like, well, if you're doing captures, it's not the real thing. I was like, oh fuck, for fuck's sake, come on, like, enough with the marketing bullshit. So, anyways, I am gonna download this. I haven't downloaded it yet. I am gonna download it and try it out, and we'll see. I'm interested. I am interested. So, give me 1 second, guys. I'm just gonna check something. I want to make sure that we are still rolling here. We are. Okay. So, anyways, say what you will. Am I trying to stoke the flame? I mean, if we want full transparency, I'm buddies with the guys from Make Believe. They're awesome. They're great engineers. They make great stuff. They're super passionate about like production and gear and making music. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm slightly biased, but it's like, even if I didn't know those guys and even if I didn't use it, I'm so sick of like the bullshit marketing rhetoric and the like, oh, but ours is the original, so it's better. It's like, oh, fuck off. Sorry. Now I'm just pissed off because their entire product line is modeling, is captures. Makes me bad. Anyways. See, I told you I needed a bottle of wine. I'm fired up. The chat's quiet. Come on, guys. I'm trying to get an arm wrestle going here. Nobody's arm wrestling with me. Come on. I don't believe any of that I just said. I was just trying to start a fight. Just an old school internet forum fight. No, I'm kidding. I do believe all of what I say. Anyways, point being, if this is great, awesome. I mean, how many 1176 plugins are there? When people come out with a new one, they don't then say all the other ones are shit. They're just like, talk about how yours is better. Right? Anyways. All right, moving on. We'll stick in the plugin realm. Speaking of plugins that already have some other stuff out there, this isn't actually out there, but Kazrog. I'm kind of like a late adopter to Kazrog. I purchased some of their plugins and I'm using them. They're not really completely like in my template, but I'd say like every other mix, I'm doing something with it. But the last couple things that they've released have been really good. I downloaded or I bought their Avalon 737, and Avalon's an interesting unit. There's not a lot of stuff that kind of like I used the Avalon hardware back in the day. The Avalon 737 channel strip, just kind of because of the era that I was coming up in. The 737 was the go-to channel strip for just about any kind of professional. It was the all-in-one compressor, really great mic pre, had a little EQ on. Like it was the one. And so I got really used to the way that EQ sounded. And especially, I think Avalon's probably more known for like they've got like the top end EQ is just really nice on the hardware. And so I was really interested in the Kazrock 737, and I downloaded that, and I think I've got. Let me just really quickly go. I think I've got another Avalon. Is it the UAD Avalon? Let me just see here. Of course, it's not going to be labeled Avalon, is it? Oh, it is. Okay, it's the 740. Oh, yeah. So I've got the UAD 737, and the Kazrock is the 747. Okay. Anyways, I do use both of them when I think I need it, but this really caught my eye because I'm typically pulling up those channel strips just to use the EQs, and so this is kind of the EQ only version, I'm assuming. This really caught my eye. I know a couple mastering guys who this is their go-to and has been for years. So this definitely caught my eye, and I'll probably download this and check this out. The other thing that really caught my eye was the stay level. When I worked at the chop shop, we had a Gates stay level, and we also had an even older Gates limiter, like it was a broadcast limiter. I don't even know if it had a name. It actually kind of looked like this Michael Brower compressor with less knobs. But I really loved the stay level, and I've tried a few of the ones that have been that have previously been released by other companies, and they're fine. There's nothing like bad about them. I feel like they just kind of didn't do. I didn't feel like they kind of did anything quote unquote special. Like I had other plugins that kind of did that same thing. And so I don't know. I haven't used the Gates stay level in 20 years, probably 15 years, maybe. So I don't really have one to compare. Maybe the Gates stay level wasn't as cool as I thought it was, and that's why it's like the plug-in versions that are out right now. I'm just kind of did nothing for me. But I'm kind of hoping that maybe they just somebody hasn't nailed it yet, and maybe this is the one. So I'll be keeping my eye on that one as well. So, I'm just hitting the chat really quickly here. I'm going to try to do chat while we go. That would keep it interactive. How about the WoW thing? Did you try it already? Yes, I have the WoW thing, and I actually put it into my mix template, just so it was kind of set up to really quickly audition. I'm still kind of on the fence. I don't know if it's going to stay in the mix template. Something else might go in there instead. But somebody says I'm going to call you Mutt B from now on. I'm not sure I get the reference, but maybe it made sense at the time when I was going off on something. But yeah, the smaller companies, the smaller plugin companies. I'm noticing a few things. And again, this is not me trying to be critical, and this is not me talking out of my ass either, because I know a lot of the guys who make these plugins. I've been involved with some of the companies that make these plugins. Short of hiring a coder and building a web store and doing it myself, I have a pretty good idea of kind of like what's up. I've got two concerns with how many plugin companies are popping up, and they both kind of circle around the same thing. Number one, compatibility. I've noticed, and I know this sounds crazy, and if I could take a DeLorean back to 2005, maybe this isn't the case, but let's go even earlier, 2003. In 2003, Pro Tools ran on dedicated DSP hardware. They only had plugins that ran on that hardware. Most Pro Tools systems ran on one Mac model. Like there wasn't a like 55 different models and processors and whatever. It's like they were kind of the same, right? So everybody bitched and complained about this closed system. This closed system allowed testing to be like pretty thorough because there weren't as many variables. And so when a plugin would release, a company would release a plugin, number one, because they had to write for the DSP that was very specific, they had to really like actually make sure they're doing a great job and that they're going to be able to sell it and that the thing works because they were more expensive, obviously, and they charged for it. But I feel like there were less issues with plugin compatibility or bugs or, when delay compensation came in. A lot of the delay compensation problems were with Pro Tools. And when Pro Tools kind of got that stuff figured out, and some people say they still haven't, well, I know for a fact that a lot of the delay compensation issues that I think we still come into contact with are because the plugins either not hasn't calculated I think, I don't know, maybe I am talking out of my ass, but I think the plugin is supposed to tell Pro Tools like what the delay compensation should be. And so I've realized by running a lot of stuff in parallel, there are a lot of plugins that you can't run in parallel because the delay compensation values aren't right. And again, I don't know, plugin companies will probably say it's Pro Tools and Avid will probably say it's the plugin companies. And like I said, I have a little bit of experience on both ends. And I think it's more the plugin companies than we realize. So I do have a little bit of an issue with so many little companies popping up because I'm finding things are less stable and less just function the way they're supposed to. Not that it crashes your system or whatever, but like, yeah, that happens too. But so that's one thing. And the second thing I have a little bit of a problem with, or at least thinking into the future, I know the business side of this can be really hard. Like when you're selling a plugin for $49, like some of these small companies selling plugins for $19. And then another company comes out and makes the exact same plugin. Like now there's, 55 clippers that are basically the same thing. It's not going to take much for some of these companies to just say, I'm out. And so we all have mix sessions or we have Pro Tool sessions or productions or mixes or whatever from even a couple of years ago that we might need to reopen at some point. I mean, people are still going back and doing Atmos mixes and asking for stems and stuff like that. Like I'm going back 15 years. I've got a separate old Mac Pro, the old Silver Tower one, with an HD Excel system in it, so I can go back and open up old sessions to print stems. I'm a lot concerned that some of these $49 plugins or $29 plugins or whatever from some of these companies that just might not be around in 3 years. And then when there's a Pro Tools update or whatever, all of a sudden now those sessions don't open. I mean, I'm dealing with a problem right now with Antares that I can't, we can't get like an Auto-Tune 9 functioning properly on one of my clients' rigs. So if a big company like Antares can't like figure out how to just make backwards compatibility a thing, I don't know how some of these small companies are. So anyways, I'm not trying to detract. I do love the fact that some of these like mid-level companies are doing awesome stuff and they're super passionate and their support is awesome because they give a shit. And they realize that the difference between them folding up shop and continuing on is their support and their reliability and their stability and the quality of their plugins. So they are working really hard at it. So that I have to give to them. And so yeah. Do you find that you try out new plugins and end up trying to find a way to make them work, or just resorting to what you know? That's an awesome question. Tech Me Out podcast asked. That's an awesome question. You know what? Part of my system's not a right word. Part of my just kind of like philosophy on what we do and how to do it is to have dedicated, compartmentalized kind of like practice time, and have dedicated experiment time and what I call play time. So I have play time where I will experiment with new plugins, and I'll pull up a mix that I, might have a bunch of drums with things that I usually do, and I'll duplicate all those tracks, take all those off, and then use some of the new stuff. And then I can always just kind of A/B and see, like, where did I get to? And it's less about being a plugin versus a plugin, and it's more about if I spend an hour working on these drums with these new tools, and then I compare to where I was when the mix was done. If I'm not even close, then something tells me that there's not something's not jiving with me. But if I'm like, holy shit, that was fun, I really enjoyed working on those plugins, and I got these drums sounding really good, really fast, and they're comparable or better than what I had when I mixed that song, that's when I start strategically implementing, being like, okay, well, what do I like about that one, that compressor or that channel strip or that EQ, and really be strategic about, okay, is that going to take the place now? And typically I'll make notes as well. I'll make a note being like, let's say I download this Kazrog Avalon, and I say, you know what, I think I'm going to really like the top end of that. Maybe the top end is kind of like, yeah, it's okay, but maybe like the mid range just really shocks me and really surprises me, and I'm like, I really like the way the mid range sounds on that EQ, and I'll make a note. And so now that gets kind of thrown into, if I'm working on something that I know I'm always doing a bunch of mid range EQ on, maybe I start playing with that and experimenting with that, taking over that slot in the template. And it's not always one thing. I usually have, for every problem in a mix, I usually have a handful of tools, and I can kind of go to any of them and get the result that I want. But, if you're having, let's say you need a vocal compressor, and you're like, I just need something to hold the vocal right there. I just need the levels all over the place. I just want it to hold the level right there so I can hear every word. You shouldn't be being like 30 plugins. You should already have 3 or 4 things that does that really well, and that's your problem solver. So hope that answered that question. Gabriel mentioned he recently ran into an issue when doing parallel saturation on the snare. Phase only becomes audible when I bounce the session to audio. Interesting. Yeah. I was actually playing with a new plugin, a relatively new plugin, yesterday or the day before, and I put it on a parallel line, and it was unusable. It's fine. It's fine on the actual track, but I bet if I did some testing, I bet it's probably having some weirdness with the delay compensation. So, Shane, I've started committing everything. Yeah, I do too. And actually, shameless plug, in my production course, the very last chapter is actually a full comprehensive deliverables lesson or segment. And so what I'm doing now, and it's a kind of a pain in the butt, but there are tools that are making it easier. What I'm doing now is when I'm done a session, I've got 3 sessions, but depending on how the label wants the mixes delivered, sometimes 4. But basically, I have my mix session that I keep, and that's basically kind of what we're going to see today. All my plugins, all my automation, all my stuff. That I keep a copy of, obviously, and back that up to 1,000 different places. I commit all of the tracks with all the plugins. I don't bake in the automation. I don't bake in like the parallel stuff. It's not going through anything. It's just any plugin that was on gets baked in. And that's my multi-track session. And then I do, especially now with Atmos, I do stems where it's like almost every track. It's usually groups of tracks, but it's getting so broken out these days that it might as well be every track. But basically, kind of like, all my kicks can go together. They don't have to be separate, but it's through everything with all the effects, all the automation, all the stuff. So you end up with these like 3 layers of starting out with your mixed Pro Tools session, and then you've got your multi-track, and then you've got your stems, and obviously your mixes. And I do a bunch of mix versions. But yeah, we that's what we have to do. Unfortunately, it's kind of where we're at, but is what it is. Ditto on the closet full of archive rigs. Yeah, I'm actually going to get rid of one. I'm like, fuck it. I'm done. Well, that's the other thing is like people will call you and they want this stuff. And you're like, not only can I not open it on my system right now, but I got to go dig out a system and I got to hook it up. And I've had to basically duplicate licenses in some instances. Like I haven't been able to upgrade to surrender licenses. I've had to buy new licenses. And I'm like, nobody wants to pay you to go and pull up these old sessions. So I think I'm just going to be like, no, it's gone. It's gone. So, what's your opinion on AI mixing services? I haven't really gotten into them too much. I have a hard time believing that here's the thing. I use AI already for a bunch of stuff, not necessarily in like music production, but I mean, obviously there's some plugins that are very AI based, one which I'll show you tonight. But there's so many different variables that are based upon the previous variable. So for instance, if you pick a snare sample, that's going to then influence the next thing, and that's going to influence the next thing, and that's going to influence the next thing. And here's the interesting thing. If I mix the same song for the first time, it's impossible because you can't mix it for the first time more than once, obviously. But if, again, tonight's the DeLorean night. If I could mix a song for the first time and then go mix it again for the first time, take a time machine back, I would end up in a different place. It would be similar, but I'd end up in a different place because my taste that day or my mood or whatever, and the minute I made one different variable, it could potentially have this butterfly effect of affecting a bunch of different other things. And so if I could mix a song 15 different ways and them all be objectively good, I'm not sure like how the AI stuff's going to end up. I guess it's going to end up with something good. It just might not be exactly what you want. And that's the thing that I'm curious about. I use ChatGPT for a bunch of stuff, and I'm still having I've gotten really good at prompting it and giving instructions, and it still sometimes doesn't give me what I want, even though it's like, no, do this, and it still doesn't. I find that a lot with like graphics. If I was designing, a plugin and I said, make that knob look exactly like that knob, there have been times where I've given such explicit instructions and it still makes that knob orange and that one's silver. And I said, no, make this one silver. And then it turns it into some other kind of gray. I don't know. I'm not super concerned about it yet. But it's not far off. So, have I tried the Shure Level Lock by Cornif? I did. I bought it. It's one of the things I'm going to pop up open tonight. So, okay. I'm going to go back to, all right. So Kazrog, we're going to check those out. They look cool. Let me see what else we got. I think that's the only plug-in stuff because I actually I got a couple new plugins here that I want to show you. So here's some hardware. Audix D6X. For anybody who's used the D6, this is such a great kick drum microphone. I don't own one, and I should. Every time I use it, it sounds awesome. Every time I hear a really great kick drum from something somebody sends me, and man, the kick drum sounds great. Well, what mic did you use on that? I'm like, D6. And I'm like, fuck, I should just buy one. Anyways, the D6X, I guess, has a couple different modes that you can put it in that just kind of tailors the EQ a little bit differently. So that's on my list. This is an interesting thing. I mean, it's not that interesting, but it is interesting for me. JC120, Roland's doing an amp sim. kind of bums me out because when I did my CB4 with ML Sound Labs, I actually wanted to do a JC120 as well, and it just never came to fruition. But yeah, this is really cool. I love jazz choruses, amps, and I'm hoping. I imagine they probably will. I haven't checked this out yet, but I'm hoping that they allow you to turn off the amp and turn off the cabinet and just kind of get the chorus circuit. Because the chorus circuit was, although it was supposed to be, I think, like just kind of the same circuitry as one of the existing Roland or Boss choruses, I always feel like there's something a little bit different whenever I use the amp. I've never been able to get that exact same sound with a pedal. So, while we're on guitar amps, I know this is software. The thing I'm going to talk about is not software. I'm going to jump to this real quick. Mesa released this 90s dual rectifier. And say what you will, I love dual rectifiers. And I've used a ton of them. And I don't really kind of dig into the Rev F, Rev G, Rev whatever the fuck. It's kind of like the thing either sounds good or it doesn't. I mean, I've played a couple and used a couple triple rectifiers that are like literally 3 serial numbers away from each other, and one sounds better than the other. So, I don't know. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is. But apparently they kind of went back to the 90s circuitry and how it was all voiced and everything. And I've heard some demos of this. This looks really cool. $3,500, maybe a little steep. There's a lot of used ones out there that, if you can play it and make sure it sounds good. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what this is going to do to the kind of the old, the 90s, the actual 90s, not this one. I'm interested what it's going to do to the used market, if it's going to make the used market come down, or, I bet you there's going to be a cohort of people that are going to say that, oh, this one sounds like shit, you got to buy the original. I bet you, well, I've already heard demos of this. This thing sounds awesome. So I will be trying one of these out at some point. Another amp. So Dave Friedman released a new amp, but it's not on his website yet. So bear with me. I'm just literally pulling up his Instagram page here. So he made a Jose amp, which is really cool because it's basically, having Dave being an amp modder has seen so many different modded Marshalls in his time. And he knows kind of what the Jose situation is. I can't remember I don't know if he worked at Jose's shop or there was some sort of connection there, but, just having the knowledge of seeing what all those mods are and seeing which ones make the great difference and which ones maybe are less impactful. And he kind of built them all into one amp. So, apparently this is going to be a limited version. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my hands on it. I'll definitely try to test it out. I don't know. I might just have to buy it and hope it's good. But I really don't need another amp. But, I do like amps. While we're on the modded Marshall, one thing I will say. The one thing, when somebody talks about like Jose amps, the thing that just for me is a little, I don't want to say like mystical, but I always loved Mick Mars's tone. That's where I first heard of a Soldano SLO. I know like one of his main amps was a Jose, I think a Jose Super Lead, or is it JMP? I can't remember. But anyways, it was a Jose modded Marshall. And as many 80s guitar bands or guitar players and kind of bands from that era that, had high gain sounds or whatever, kind of the later Motley Crue stuff for me was just like tonally just superior. And so apparently a lot of that in the studio was whatever that Jose amp was. So I've always kind of kept my eyes and ears open for something that kind of does that. And maybe this one will. So I also still want to get an SLO 100. That's kind of next on my shopping list for amps. But again, like I said, I don't need any more amps. But I'm going to talk about more amps while we're in the modded zone. Marshall's finally releasing their own quote unquote modded series. Super smart business idea. Again, I've heard the demos of these. They sound great. I love the fact that they've got a JCM 900 head. They released this little one, but I didn't even realize that they've got a JCM 900 reissue. I had a JCM 900, and I love the thing. I thought it was awesome. I ended up trading it in for a Line 6 amp. That was the beginning. That was the beginning of the modeling world for me. But yeah, definitely interested to try this. I would love to be able to get like this 59 modded, this JCM 800 modified, and that Jose in the same room, and just kind of see what's what. I would love to just shoot those out. And I mean, I'm sure they're all different, but just to see like what jives with me. And that's another thing. If I can give some advice, when you're shooting out gear, it's less about like, which is superior in the sense of like, oh, which one sounds like the real old one, or which one's, I don't know. Just pick the one that like jives with you better. Like I know some people, if you put two amps next to each other, like let's say the rectifiers, great example. If I took this 90s dual rectifier and then I went and got an actual 90s dual rectifier and one was brighter than the other, and I played those for 10 different people, 4 people are going to say the brighter one sounds better, and 6 people are going to say the less bright one sounds better, because those people like it a little bit like, warmer, a little duller, and the other people like it a little brighter. So pick the thing that just works, that you typically like gravitate towards. If you typically like really bright, bitey things, and one of these Marshalls is a little bit brighter and bitier, well, then that should be better for you. If you don't like that, if it's kind of like, no, I like the top end a little rolled off, and that's a little too like strident in the top end, like go with the other one. So anyways, yeah, that's our amps. I'm going to hit the chat real quick, trying to keep up. Backs versus stereo EQP. Any thoughts? Hey Kyle, what's going on, buddy? Yeah, I mean, they kind of do the same thing. If you do like the typical kind of smiley face, the smiley face thing with the Pultec. I guess with the Pultec, I do a lot of like the where you cut and boost at the same time. So if you're boosting the bottom end and then you're cutting, you're also doing the attenuation. It kind of bends the curve. That doesn't really happen with the back. So they're a little different, but I would use them kind of for the same thing. Kind of getting that smiley face kind of thing going on the mix bus. So somebody says, want to tell you your drum shot packages rock. Thank you. Another shameless plug, everybody. Go to drumforge.com if you want to buy the drum shots. I got a lot of people reaching out to me being like, hey, man, which samples do you use? Mine. So if you want them, they're there. I worked for Roland with the V-drum side of things. They've been working on this for a minute. Hopefully it brings more awareness to how great those amps actually are. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. They are great amps. I know of a small stockpile of JC120 heads, not the combos, but the heads. And I think I'm going to ask really, 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 really nicely to the guy who has them and see if I can maybe buy one from him. That would be cool. Going through the chat. Oh, thank you very much, guys. We need to grow this channel. Well, help me out. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. What about amp sim versions? I'm assuming that was of the rectifiers. Yeah, I really like the ML SoundLab ones. I'm trying to remember which one. I think he's got like a 2-channel one. The rectifier in the Axe Effects is one of my favorite sounds. I use that for a ton of stuff. You guys have hopefully heard the Nickelback albums I've produced. A lot of that is the fractal rectifier model. So, yeah, I just the rectifier sound's always been cool to me. I've always liked that. I used to try to chase that tone with my Marshall JCM 900 and like a Metal Zone pedal, and I never could get it there. And now I know why, because I wanted that amp. I've got I don't have a rectifier. I've got a Mark IV, which is, if I had to pick a Mark IV or like a Mark series or a rectifier, I'd probably stick with the Mark series. And I've got a rev generator that gives me a lot of what the rectifier does. And I would arguably say all the good stuff a rectifier has, and with very little of the bad stuff that a rectifier can have. But I don't know. Like I said, it's all fun stuff, right? So somebody mentioned the 94 album is one of the best sounding records ever. That's the Motley Crue self-titled. So good. So good. That's actually, like, as soon as I got my speakers plugged in at my studio, the very first song on that record is got just some massive drums. Like there's the verse doesn't have any guitars in it. It's like it's big fucking drums. It's awesome. If you guys haven't checked out that record, even if you're not a Motley Crue fan, especially if you're not a Motley Crue fan, because that's a different singer and a different style. It's killer. So good. If you could only have a couple amp heads for your work, what would you pick? Yeah, diesel VH4 across the board. That's the most versatile. I mean, I like all channels on that thing. I could do a whole album with that amp. I could do a whole album with my plug-in of it. Another shameless plug, ML Sound Lab, CB4, amp sim. See, I'm getting a little more comfortable, like, hawking shit. I used to despise it, and I was like, I'm never going to do that. And here I am. Never say never. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question, because like, it's like, if I was going into a project, I need versatility. So I can't just have an amp that has one sound. I need versatility. And the VH4 is the best at that. The other amps that I have that I really like, like I said, the Mark IV is great, but it's what I refer to as a two-trick pony. Really clean and heavy. The rev generator is actually a great one, like one-stop shop. If I was going to do a record, I could definitely take the rev generator in for that. And the clean tones and all the different modes and everything like that. That's actually an amp that I would recommend if somebody diesel VH4 is not your thing, or if it's a little too pricey and the revs are killer. Wizard amps have been used many times by Mike. Yep, I you know what? I've used the Wizard cabinets. I've never used a Wizard head, but yeah, I mean they're apparently awesome, like kind of Marshall-esque things. So, thank you everybody for all the compliments on the drum soap and drum Arcus and drum shots. I love that. Thoughts on Vox amps? Great question. My favorite Vox amp is actually an AC-15. And then at the Chop Shop, we had this crazy old, like, solid state thing. I can't remember the name of it. I used to call it a Viscount, but I think the S was silent. I think it's called a Viscount or a Viscount or something like that. It sounded insane. Like, the gain on this thing was crazy. It was very, very strange. So that was a cool amp. Not that it's a Vox amp, but it's the AC-15 reminded me of one of my new favorite amps is actually an amp called a Morgan AC-20. And I don't know how much circuitry is shared. I don't know if AC is just in the name. I don't really know, but it's kind of, it's like just that really great full edge of breakup, push it a little bit. It just has the I don't know, that amp. I will definitely be getting one of the Morgan AC-20s at some point here soon as well. Maybe that might get bumped ahead of the Soldano, but okay. All right. I'm going to hit back into this because I haven't even opened a session yet. All right. I'm going to blow through the other things I saw that I'm going to check out. So for headphones, obviously, I'm just using these cheap in-ears for this so I don't have big earphones on and doesn't mess with my awesome hair. Just kidding. I typically, I've got what are these, 650s? Sennheiser 650s. That's kind of my, headphone that I like to do some of my mixing on. I've got a box of headphones back there, AKG 702s, Audio-Technica M50X, Sony 7506s, old Bayers that I don't think are working anymore, but headphones are a little bit like cheaper than like monitors to go out and buy new ones on a regular pace. But I do love like having different trying out different headphones. So there were a couple that caught my eye, and I'm typically gravitating these days towards open back headphones. There's less low end, but they sound just more real is not the right word, but they sound less just, I don't know, reals. They sound more natural, I guess. So these caught my eye, the Audio-Technicas. I'm probably going to check those out. These I've heard amazing things about. Like, these are Mark IIs. I don't know what's different about the Mark II. I've heard a bunch of people say that these 1990 Pros, I think these are open back as well. I've heard that these are incredible headphones, especially if like people have to mix an entire song, like they don't have speakers at all, or they're in a shitty room or something. I've had a few of my friends tell me these are awesome. And, $600, it's getting a little up there for, I don't love mixing on headphones. So unless I'm going to be using these a lot, it's a little bit, but I might check those out. But speaking of speakers, a few speakers that actually, that caught my eye. Curious if anybody's tried these things out. The Telegraphers. These are interesting to me, in the sense that I think, well, maybe not. I think these are sealed cabinets, and I tend to gravitate towards sealed cabinets. I'm interested. Like they've done a couple like signature series, and I'm like, do they tune them differently? Is it just the color? Like, what's the deal with these? So I'm interested to check these out. For those of you who don't know, I've been using Neumann 310s for a long time. I had NS10s right next to them for a long time. I've since got rid of my NS10s. Kind of maybe wish I didn't. So I still like the Neumann 310s. I feel like I'm always on the hunt for speakers, which the fact that I brought up the fact that I'm on a hunt for speakers, I figured I might as well let you in on probably what I'm going to end up getting. These guys. This company is called Strauss, and there's only a few people who I know who have these things. I think Eric Valentine, Jesse Ray Ernster, who actually brought a pair of these over to my studio in LA, like probably 2019, and I really liked them. I just don't think I was ready to move off the NS10 310 combo yet. But I think these are probably going to be my next set of speakers. They're not super loud. That's only a 5-inch woofer. I'll probably have to pair it with a sub, but I know Eric Valentine was on these for a while. I think Jesse had these for a while. I think they've both gone to the bigger versions of them, which are crazy. They're like these big mamas. Yeah, I'm not sure who has what, but I'm just looking at the little guys. I'm not that much of a baller. Yeah, these things are just like super accurate. I think I heard Eric Valentine at one point say they're like kind of what you wish an NS10 was. So it's like kind of gives you all the benefits that the NS10 gave you, but fixes all the problems. And that's, for me, kind of how I interpret it as well when I had them in my studio. These were almost like, if I combined the Neumann with the NS10, like that's kind of, And I don't want to make it sound like these are NS10-esque because they're way better. But it kind of, I don't know, it kind of gave me the thing. So I really want to try these again in my new studio, make sure they're awesome, and I might get those. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. I want to pop open a session and start showing you guys some toys that I've been playing with, and just give you guys kind of an update as to where I'm at with kind of things that are in my mix template, things that I'm using often. Before we do that, I see a couple more questions coming in the chat, so I'll hit those before I get going here. Favorite headphones for tracking? I really like the Audio-Technica M50s. They're closed backs. They give you enough isolation. They're very comfortable. They sound like exciting is not the right word. They've got a good frequency curve that makes you like, yeah, this sounds good. So love the Nickelback stuff. Looking for a Gibson Explorer 7-string, only 200 made. Yeah, good luck finding one. Yeah, I'd like to get one. I've got a baritone Explorer. I don't even know if they sold them, but I got a baritone Explorer that we've used some of those on records. They did a Wizard as a double for chorus with Gibson Jr. for Pod to Live song. Cool. EL34 EVH smokes everything else. Yeah, those things are great. The blue Lola headphones. Yeah, I should try those out, actually. I've heard a lot of good things about those as well. Relating to monitoring, I know you've been moving studios. Are there considerations you have for room treatment? I just moved into a new room and it needs some work. Well, I'm lucky. This room was actually designed by a pretty reputable acoustician. And so they kind of built it. It was supposed to be more of a writer's room. So I'll be really interested when I do my kind of room EQ shooting analysis and positioning, and to see kind of where things are at. I'm hoping I can get away with just moving a few things and not having to add more treatment. And obviously it's like I'm renting a room. I don't want to modify it too much. But I think from what I've done 2 mixes in here already, and they've both translated pretty well. So I think I'm not far off. But yeah, treatment's always a thing. I would say, absorption, just figure out all those kind of first point reflections. And if you're in a small room, it's going to be a little harder to have options. You just kind of have to deaden down the stuff that's a problem, and you're probably not going to have much room for trapping either. So that's where the headphones come in. There's a lot of great mixes being done exclusively on headphones. Like, there's been a couple songs that have come out that I know the mixers, and they've told me after the fact. I don't know if they want it public knowledge, but they've told me after the fact. They're like, yeah, I mixed that in a hotel room on whatever headphones. And I'm like, damn, sounds great. So, sorry, I kind of lost my chat here. Hang on. There we go. With or without a sub? I'll probably get a sub for those Strauss. We got to get you into PMCs, man. Yeah, you know what? I spent a lot of time at PMCs. We got PMCs at Tommy Lee's Atrium studio before he sold that, and I think his new room, they also did PMCs as well. I really like the PMCs a lot. I like them a lot. I do. I like. I'm trying to think of how to explain. I'm trying to think of a good analogy with the PMCs. The PMCs for me are kind of like if you go to the gym and they've got like one of those machines that like does everything and has like the crazy resistance. There's no weights moving, but it uses like, hydraulics or something for the weights, and it's got a touch screen and whatever. And it's like, I know I could probably get into really good shape if I went to a gym that has this crazy machine and use it in all the different ways and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, like, what I need is just like a treadmill and like, a set of dumbbells. And so for me, I have found that it's almost like the speakers that I tend to do my best work on are not the best sounding speakers per se. They're not the ones that make everything sound super clear. They're not the ones that have the best transient response. It's almost like I need like the shit sandwich. Not that the Neumanns are shitty. They're great. But they make me do things a certain way that really works for me. And so I think, again, everybody has something different that works for them. When you go to the gym, everybody's not doing the same thing, right? Everybody's doing something a little different. That one exercise might work really well for that guy, and then another guy might come and do that same exercise and like nothing changes. And so I tend to gravitate towards a certain kind of character monitor that makes me do a certain thing. And for whatever reason, as much as I love PMCs, and I've spent a lot of time on some of them, they just don't make me do the certain things that I know need to be done. So I don't know. It's again, not a dig on PMCs. I think they're great monitors. I've recommended so many people with PMCs. I know a lot of people who bought them that, I recommended them specifically for, because I know that person likes, I know what that person gravitate towards. I know what that person's using them for. And I think they're probably they're definitely one of the best speakers out there. Obviously they're not cheap, but they're awesome. So, okay. Digging in back into, Okay. So I've got a track here. I'm going to play a little bit. This is an awesome song. A little bit of a blast from the past. I can't remember when this was from. Feel like it was like from 2015. Speaking of the Atrium Studio, this was recorded at the Atrium Studio. So this is a band called Breaker Box. Scott and Christina, they're the duo that is Breaker Box. I've got their links down below if you do want to check them out. But we did this song, I think in like 2013 or 2014, and we were having a meeting the other day, and we were talking about doing this song. I'm like, fuck, that was a banger. I'm like, I really liked recording that song and thought it turned out really well. And so I thought, you know what? Let's pull this song up and use this for a little show and tell today. So this is a song called Summertime. I'm just going to play a little bit of it so you guys can kind of hear what it is. This isn't the final mix. What's out on iTunes right now, Scott Calandra, he's their drummer. He mixed it. He's a great engineer, great drummer. And so he actually mixed the track, the final mix that's out, in iTunes, Apple Music and Spotify and all that stuff. So I just kind of threw together a rough mix of the tracks, and man, a lot of the source tracks sounded really good. So I'm like, yeah, we know what we're doing sometimes. So anyways.
Crazy, talking for hours, it doesn't faze me, but then on the corner, right by my house, you know you wanna come take me out, I'll be there waiting, Let's go, let's go, let's go. What a beautiful night, bright lights, big city. Oh, what a beautiful night. You're looking good.
All right. All right. Okay. So, I mean, this is just when I was looking for a track today to use, I'm just like, big drums, big guitars. Christina is an incredible singer. So I'm like, this is going to be fun. And they were nice enough to let me use the track. So, somebody said Randy Staub Evanescence mix vibes. Dude, that's awesome. I'll take that. So, I figured I'll just kind of walk you guys through some of my stuff here in terms of kind of like plugins I'm using. Somebody asked, somebody just joined the chat. What studio monitors you use? 310s. I actually just mentioned that. I'm on the Neumann KH310s, and I've got one of the older 805 sub. It's the big long one. So, Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to open up. Let's focus on drums for a second. I'm gonna basically open up all of my drum folders here, so you guys can see all the source tracks. Okay, so if any of you have watched my videos in the past, this probably looks relatively familiar. All my mix template stuff is kind of set up. I can't remember if I put up a mix template in our portal for all the newsletter subscribers, but if you're not subscribed to the newsletter, please go to my website and do so. I don't spam you that often. I try to give somewhat meaningful and educational, enlightening information. But one of the things that I offer is some goodies every now and then: fractal presets, drum samples, session templates, all that stuff. So, anyways, make your own session templates. No. But this should look relatively familiar. So I've got all of my source tracks that feed into these folder tracks, and then the folder tracks make mixing really easily because now I just have a kick track, I've got a snare, I have toms, cymbals, room, and that's kind of what I use to mix once I get my balance of all the stuff that feeds into that. So, typically on all of my source tracks, like the ones that are in the folders, I'm still this OG. I heard somebody the other day say the Waves SSL sounds like shit. I'm like, I don't know. I use it. I like it. I don't think there's been a mix I've done that hasn't had this on most of the tracks since it came out. I don't know. Maybe my mixes sound like shit too. Some of my mixes definitely sound like shit when I go back and listen. But I still love this plugin. And although I experiment with other SSL channel strips, I keep coming back to this one. There's a familiarity with it. It does what I want. It's probably more familiar than it is like, is there something better out there? Yeah, probably. I feel like this would have to literally disappear and me have to go and start using something else every day to kind of get me off this. But as while it's still available and it still works and it doesn't take up a shit ton of processing power and I don't know, this just works for me. The one thing I will say that I'm using with it is here. I'm actually going to reach over and grab a knob on my Rock Solid Audio controller that looks like an SSL channel strip. And I've actually got, let me show you this one. So there's a company called Rock Solid Audio, and they're a relatively kind of small, newish company. This is kind of like I don't want to say the generic one, but like if you use Fab Filter or you use like Metric Halo channel strip or anything that was just kind of, you want more of just kind of like an EQ. It does have a dynamic section on it, but this is like a dedicated, I don't know if I can get that close. Maybe I should link to all this stuff in the bottom. But anyways, the one that I'm using is down here, and it's laid out. It kind of looks like this SSL channel strip. So when I'm mixing, I can quickly just like jump to different tracks, and I grab the knobs on my Rock Solid Audio thing and just go to town. And so it makes mixing a lot easier, a lot more fun. So for anybody who hasn't tried like a plug-in controller, it can be life-changing. And that's the one that I use. It looks like an SSL channel strip. It's small, so it kind of fits in over, like, I don't have a lot of room on my desk because I've got an S3 and a dock and all this other stuff. So it works really well for me. So, not that this SSL thing is new, but I wanted to share with you the Rock Solid Audio controller because they're pretty awesome. So then those all feed into a folder track. And in the folder track, I used to just have another SSL channel strip, or I wouldn't put anything on it. And depending on let's say the snare, what that group of tracks needed, I would just pick based off of whatever I thought it needed, and then I instantiate it. And so I've started actually because I didn't like having to stop my workflow and put on a plugin. Sometimes it needed a compression. Sometimes it needed EQ. Sometimes it needed like a really sharp EQ. Sometimes it needed a super broad EQ. Sometimes I wanted to put another channel strip-esque plugin on. And so I went back to channel strip from Metric Halo. This is just such an awesome all-in-one plugin. And so I used to use this plugin a lot, and then I kind of veered away from it, not for any other reason. I was just using other things. And so I've put that back on my drums kind of subgroups here, my folders. There is something in the drums that I wanted to share with you guys, because this is really fucking cool. A friend of mine, Jordan Orbeck, he introduced me. He's a great mixer, by the way. If you guys don't know him, check him out. Another fellow Canadian. And he lives down here in Nashville. And me and my family went over to his place and spent a little time with his family. I had a great time. And he's got an awesome studio, does amazing work. But one of the things that he showed me when we were there, I don't know, maybe he doesn't want me showing everybody. Well, sorry, Jordan. There's a plugin called Patchwork. And Patchwork basically is like a parallel plugin chain thing, mixer, whatever you want to call it. And so how he showed me how he uses it is kind of how I've started to use it. And it basically has, I don't know. I'm kind of speechless. Like it's incredible. So typically in the past, if I've got a snare drum and I want samples and I don't really know which samples I want yet. I don't know what the blend is going to be. And I'll put up, 10, 4, 8, whatever, however many snare samples. And I'll just kind of audition them in the track and try to do a blend really fast with them. You can do that in Trigger. Like Trigger, obviously you've got these lanes and you've got, you're so limited by, number one, either one shots or things that have TCIs. You're kind of limited with what you can do. There's no processing lanes in here. There's, depending on what libraries you're using, sometimes you might, want, different rooms from different libraries, and sometimes you can't get them if they didn't give you the separate TCI. Long story short, this is not the best way to do what Jordan showed me how to do, which is this. So what I've done is I've built a snare preset in here where I have on one track in one plugin, I have running in parallel Stephen Slate drums, Trigger with most of my one shots that I can just turn on and off depending on the track. Superior Drummer, which you guys all know how much I love. And then I've got Contact with a GGD library. I won't open these up because they take a second to launch. Like this is doing so much heavy lifting, even opening the window to get the plugin to pop up. But I've got a GGD kit in here. I've got a Mixwave kit in here. I've got battery loaded with just some older sample libraries that I still like. I've got addictive drums loaded in here. And then I've also got a Drum Forge, the Savior, loaded in here. So I'm going to turn all of these down. And then the cool thing is you can make your own macro knobs at the bottom here and apply them to like whatever settings you want. So what I did is I made a macro knob for the level of each of these chains, and they're all running in parallel. So I'm just, instead of turning them on and off, I just have these knobs that I can blend. So I'm just going to solo the drums, and then I'm going to turn this up really loud. Here, let's just I'll go to the chorus or the verse. Let's go to the verse. Okay, so that's no snare sample yet. Actually, something's poking through there. What's poking through there? I don't know. Oh, I've got a rouser on this whole thing. Let me turn that off for a second. So really quickly, I just made a snare sample. This is now one, to me, I'm considering this one sample. Like this is my blend, right? And that was so quick and easy where I just loaded up kind of like sounds that I know or libraries that I like. Now I've got a really cool, unique sample that's not the same as everybody else's because I just used 8 different libraries of samples and mixed them together. There's a little phase button here. You can flip phase and kind of see what's what. You can also load up plugins after the fact. So you've got this chain of plugins. So I've got an SSL plugin. So now I can affect that whole thing if I want. Make sure it's on. It is on. Like, this is pretty cool. This is really cool.
Think of your touch, and I'll go crazy, talking for hours. It doesn't faze me, but then you say, I need you, baby, Street light around the corner, right by my house. You know you wanna come take me out. I'll be there waiting, Let's go, let's go, let's think of your touch, and I'll go crazy.
Like, that's fucking awesome. Incredible. Jordan, I owe you, like, a really fucking nice dinner for that tip. A really nice dinner and a really expensive bottle of wine. Killer. And so my goal now is when I do my practice time or my play time, right? More play time, I'm going to start building out combinations of samples. So I'll have maybe 3 different snare presets, and one will be like super hypes, and will be all these different combinations of like tracks that if I really want to make a super hyped snare drum. One will be maybe a little bit more like natural, and then one will be maybe kind of something in between, or something, maybe, I don't know, whatever it is. But I'm going to start building out just different combinations that have different libraries. So, if I use the CLA samples in the Stephen Slate, in this one, maybe I use the David Bendeth ones in another one, or, whatever. Use however you want to do it. But I'm going to start building out presets with where the libraries in them are different. And I don't want the blend to be the same every time. I want to start with the blend all the way down and have to build it. And that automatically is going to force me to come up with something, even if it sounds reminiscent of something I've done before. It's going to, the chances of me blending the exact same blend are very slim. So doing this, it almost forces me to come up with a little bit of something different and tailor it and tune it to each track. So I'm gonna save all my presets with all the knobs down, so that way it just forces my hand. But you saw how quick it was. Like in 30 seconds, I have a snare drum that I think sounded better than the thing I had before I did that. So really cool. You can do the same thing with kicks. You can do the same thing, or you can just use it as like a parallel chain for plugins. You can have 5 different compressors going on at the same time and have, like here I've got my 2 different drum compressor parallel compressions. One's kind of like the sustain, and then one's the smack. I could put those into the same track now with that patchwork plugin. So that's huge. Really, really, really awesome workflow. I'm actually going to mute. Let's just see. This one's already got a lot of ambience in it. I want to show off something fresh and new. Let me see. Maybe I just got to get rid of mine. I labeled my drum shots. I labeled CMFB. My buddy Jason Hook calls me CMFB. You guys can use your imagination what that means. All right, maybe I'll turn that one off. Turn this whole thing off. I want to get... Okay, so what I wanted to show you now is this awesome plugin. This is the one I teased from earlier. I don't know for certain, but I haven't seen any actual demonstrations of this yet. Sorry, really quickly before I jump to that. John Plett just asked, would it be possible to do something similar with Wave Studio Rack? Yes. It's called Studio Verse now. So I do that. I actually have got in my lead vocals, I've got a preset that I made a long time ago. But yes, you can do something similar. The only thing, I don't think you can pull up instruments. Oh, maybe you can. I can't remember what the limitation was. It looks like, why aren't my instruments showing up? Oh, maybe you can. Interesting. Good question, John. I feel like I tried to do it, and there was something, I can't remember what it was. But yeah, if you've already got Studio Verse or Studio Rack, you've got the Wave stuff, check that one out. Okay, back to David Bendeth, DB Verb. This is such a cool concept. This is kind of like the concept I just showed you with the snares, but for reverbs. So let's just put the snare track on. Okay, so I've got my send here. This is my send from the snare drum going to the deverb here. So what this is, or what this does, it's a reverb unit, but basically it's 4 parallel reverbs, and this little button down here is the setting button. It gives you 3 settings for each one. And so I'm just going to go through them really quickly. I mean, this isn't really a tutorial per se, but I just want to show you guys kind of how awesome this is, because each one sounds really good. There are a few, maybe there's one specific plugin I know of that kind of is similar-esque, but I've never had much luck with it. And I don't know if it's the settings that they used or the presets or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I've just never had much luck with it. And so when I put this up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And I started using it. And I'm like, everything I do in it sounds, I think sounds great. So I think it's just the sounds they used were like the settings that are in here that they modeled and put in it are awesome. The interface looks cool. So cool. It's like an SSL interface. So anything SSL, I'm in. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so let me turn on my send. I'm going to turn the send up real loud so you guys can hear the character of this. So they've got an SPX 90. That's the SPX, and there's 3 different settings. So here's setting number 1. Like awesome, right out of the gate. Nice snare verb. So kind of high pingy. similar time, just a little bit lower, not quite so pingy. And then here's a completely different one. Okay, then you've got the AMS. Everybody knows the AMS. I bet you can guess what this one's going to sound like. Okay, so that's kind of like the quick slappy one. Nice. There's the non-lin. I mean, an AMS non-lin or like deverb non-lin, like that. This stuff's like just lived on my Effects 2 return for 15 years, and so now having like because the SPX 90 kind of does that thing too. So now this is just going to live on my effects return for that thing because I can very quickly go and feel or hear all these different flavors. Okay, let's hear the AM. Now this is the TC. Okay, nice. And extra, I know what extra is because I spoke to the guys who made this. But I'll show you what these sound like. Okay, so here's the magic of this thing. Okay, let's just go to the default setting here. All right, and then the other thing really quickly, you do have pre-delay, and you've got a high frequency gain and then a high pass. You can roll off some low end here, and then you can tailor the top end as well. So really simple, really quick and easy. You've got a wet dry knob. This is on a return, so I'm full wet. So interesting thing about this, like this really like woofy TC, I would if I had one reverb up, and I was getting a snare reverb, I would never put that up because it's like not what I'm doing. It's like I want a reverb tail. But the minute I heard that kind of reinforced the low end of the snare, I'm like, I love that. That's going in there for sure. It's just going to be a matter of like, now where am I getting the ambience from? So like that's an awesome trick. I'm assuming that's probably a trick David's been doing for a while, where it's like instead of EQing a fatter snare drum, like get that woofy kind of low endy woolly reverb and have that be kind of that weight in the bottom. Okay, so now I've kind of gone through. I know what each one sounds like. Now I'm going to get a blend here, see what works. That's killer. Again, it's one of those scenarios where it forces you to come up with a new snare reverb every time, and nobody's going to have that exact same combination that you have. And also, then you can tune it to the song. Like there was that one that was kind of like a little pingy, and it's kind of like, okay, well that gives me the length I want, but it's not the right kind of frequency. And having all four, it's awesome. Sold. Buy. Sold. So good. Okay. What else is new that I can show you guys? Oh, yes. Somebody asked me about this earlier. So this is the new Cornef level lock, which is like the Shure level lock. And if anybody's been using Sound Toys since Sound Toys kind of came out, they've got one called Devil Lock. I use Devil Lock all the time, even if it's just for like something subtle. Like I know everybody goes to these things for like smashy stuff. I like just the tone of Devil Lock when on it's like a very, very light setting. I'll use on lead vocals sometimes just to kind of make them a little fuzzy, but not really distorted fuzzy. And so this is a really cool one. I've put this on the drum rooms here. The thing that's nice, and I've just got this, so this is really relatively new, but I'm liking it because it gives you what the Devil Lock does, but it gives you so much more in tone shaping. So you can use the pre-filters so that way it's not distorting on the low end as much, like it's not farting out the way that sometimes like Devil Lock does. You've got post filters. You've got all these different like gain staging options. And then if you click on the Cornef logo, you got all of these things. And I haven't really played around with these yet, but so there's off. It's one of those things where he's like, you're overdoing it and you just keep doing it anyways. And then at some point you got to peel it back. And then when you take it off, you're like, fuck, it doesn't sound as good anymore. But this is a really cool one. Definitely check the demo on this, like, and see if it kind of fits in your workflow. I've got to play around with like what all this stuff does. There's 3 different kind of, I think models that they modeled these after. I think I read on the website, Chad Blake, who's notorious for using these, amazing engineer. He's got a bunch of them. And so they modeled a couple of them. And then I'm not sure what that DK is, probably Dan Cornef. So I'm assuming that's probably the one he's got. So, interesting. I just realized a sidechain EQ. So you can make it pump. Or make it kind of like pump down on a certain frequency without actually having to EQ that frequency. Let me try something. I want to try this. So basically, like I'm squashing the crap out of, like I'm really pushing that high frequency in there, so that way it compresses that harder, so it's not quite as washy on the cymbals. That's cool. what that would sound like on bass. Let's put that on the bass. Let's just go to default here. Oh, how about I turn that down now? Not really hearing it. I think the bass tone it's definitely holding it there in place. It's definitely not moving, but I don't know if the bass tone's really conducive to that. So what else can I show you guys? There's a couple other plugins that I've been gravitating towards. This is kind of a new one in my arsenal that has shown up a lot over the last few months. This is like the multi-band TubeTech compressor, soft tube modeled it and released it. It's really great for obviously just kind of smoothing things out instead of using like a Gullfoss or, there's a couple other those kind of like auto that just kind of adjust multi-band kind of thing. This one's nice because you got a little bit more control over it. So I've been putting these on like vocal buses, and I've even used it on the master bus on a couple mixes that I've done. And at any point in time, once you kind of get everything under control, it's very easy to just like, if you want something a little brighter or something a little, take a little low end, whatever, super easy to do without kind of messing everything up. It still kind of holds everything in place in a nice way.
Touch, and I'll go crazy, talking for hours. It doesn't faze me, but then you say, I need you, baby, Street light around the corner, right by my house. You know you wanna come take me out. I'll be there waiting, Think of your touch, and I'll go crazy, talking for hours. It doesn't faze me, but then you say, I need you, baby, around the corner, right by my house. You think of your touch, and I'll go crazy, talking for hours. It doesn't faze me, but then you say, I need you, baby, Street light around the corner, right by my house.
The vocal reverb. I'm actually using one of these on the vocal as well, so it's not just a snare reverb.
Think of your touch, and I'll go crazy, talking for hours. It doesn't faze me, but then you say, I need you, baby, Street light around the corner, right by my house. You know you wanna come take me out. Think of your touch, and I'll go crazy, talking for hours. It doesn't faze me, but then you say, go! What a beautiful night. Bright lights, big city. Oh, what a beautiful night. You're looking good, feeling pretty. Oh, what a beautiful night. Come on, take me, baby, 'cause I'm ready to go on a beautiful night in the summertime.
Yeah, I really like this a lot. This is great. I mean, like I said, I've been using it a lot on vocals. It really just kind of pulls everything in and smooths everything out in such a way where you're not chasing frequencies as much, and you don't have to squash like the whole vocal. You just don't have to smash it together. And then you just use the threshold, and the gain, the makeup gain is basically like your overall tone shaping. I've used the hardware version of this. I'm trying to remember who had one. There's a studio I worked at in LA that had one. I would always put this on some sort of like bus, either a vocal bus or a drum bus or something, and it's great. Now that it's it's probably been around for a while, but this is new to me. I just bought this not too long ago. No. We touched upon Studio Verse. This is the Waves kind of multi-rack loader thing. This is also amazing. Somebody said in the chat that the only thing they could get into it was trigger. They couldn't get any other instruments triggering it. I think that's probably why I didn't use it. That's probably why I went to the Blue Cat. Not Superior and Slate. Yeah, I don't think it runs like instruments. I think it's mainly just kind of like more like the plug-in type stuff. So, okay. What else? There's this. This is the somebody mentioned AI earlier. I've been playing around with this plugin quite a bit, and so this is a company. What's this company? I can't even remember. I'm sorry, guys. Sonable. This is a Smart Comp 2, and so I downloaded their the demos of all their their bundle of plugins, and I was really impressed, and especially by this. So this is kind of like, again, it's kind of AI-esque where you run the vocal through it, and then you turn it, like analyzes it, and then gives you kind of some spectral dynamics control. Let me show you what I did here. I've used this on lead vocals recently. I just did a mix for one of the kind of the artists that you guys know that I mix for. And I ended up using this on the lead vocal. It sounded really good. But I'm going to put this on the background vocal bus.
What a beautiful night, bright lights.
And it's already squashed a lot, but
What a beautiful night, bright lights, big city. What a beautiful night.
so you hit this button and it listens to what it's doing.
What a beautiful night.
And it basically gives you a kind of like a spectral curve of what's going on, and then compresses and treats it in such a way. But then the nice thing about that is down here, you can, because obviously when you're doing multi-band stuff, if something hits harder than the other thing, well, then all of a sudden now it can sound like then the level of that high frequency, let's say, gets pulled down, and now the vocal sounds dark. So it's very easy to make that up down here, and you can kind of choose how much you want it to lean on the spectral imprint. It's got, how sharp they say clean and dirty, but it's kind of like how smooth out the attack and release times of the compressor is. And then obviously it's very quick and easy just to kind of set your threshold and your ratio. And I like this interface. I mean, I love interfaces that look like hardware, but this is a really nice interface. The other thing I think is really cool about this is being able to save different settings kind of within this thing, so you can get a couple different options and then just switch between them. One thing I haven't checked, I wonder if you can automate those. Let me look here. I don't know. Let's cancel out of this. Can you automate those? No, I don't think so. I was about to say that would be awesome if you could automate them, and then you could have one for the verse and one for the chorus, whatever. That would be cool. So yeah, Sonable Smart Comp. I've played around with some of their other plugins, but this is the one that's actually really caught my eye. So I'm trying to see what else is in here that's kind of a new thing that you guys probably haven't seen before. Obviously, I'm playing around with the bend of dB verb. Somebody asked about the WoW thing. Yeah, I've got it in here. It's good. I don't know. Next time I see Randy, I'm gonna have to ask him, like, how do you really use that thing? Like, or was he actually even really using it? I know he was using it, but I don't know if I'm using it right. I've used it a few times on mixes, and it's like, yeah, but it's definitely not like every time. So, I recently had somebody actually had a question about mix bus stuff, and so there's a few. I'll just highlight a few things. We're getting on in the evening here. I figure I'll do a little more Q&A before we wrap up, but I still have this on a lot of mixes. The Soundtech from Make Believe, love this. I actually just used an SSL comp, Waves SSL comp instead of my outboard here, just to keep the just to keep the, I was actually in the middle of a different mix and I didn't want to have to change settings. So I just used an inboard. It's like an inboard outboard boat in the box. I'm gonna start calling plugins inboard. I'm using an inboard compressor. I love that. I've never actually stumbled upon that before. I like that. Oxford Inflator. This is a great plugin. It's kind of like an upwards compressor, or I guess expander. This is a cool plugin. This is like, I don't know exactly what it does, but it's very easy to overdo this thing, but very rarely sounds bad unless you overdo it. But little Pro Q3, just doing a little tidying up on the mix bus. And then ozone, I've just got an ozone limiter, just kind of catching peaks so I don't blow you guys up. Man, there was something else I wanted to show you. There was one other thing. What was it? What was it? Oh, the Blue Cat. Let's go back to the Blue Cat for a second. Here's the other thing that I use the Blue Cat for. As you guys know, I like amp sims. I like IRs, and I sometimes find having a way to mix and match IRs from different companies, different software, even just Audition. Not that easy. And so I'm using this patchwork for having on IR loaders from different companies set up. This one, I've got all the GGD stuff, but I've got their different libraries. So I've got 4 different libraries set up here so I can mix and match. So instead of having to pick between one of the 4 GGD IR libraries, I have them all loaded in here. And so I need one plugin and then I go from there. And I can load in, the red wires in here. I could load in the ML stuff in here. I could have an even larger chain in here with even more stuff, but I've just using it for the GGD stuff for right now. All right. I'm tuckering out. My eyes are getting a little crazy from these lights. I got to get my light situation figured out here. So we are going to go to the chat, do some Q&A, and wrap this baby up. Oh, the other thing I wanted to give a quick shout out to, not that I have anything to do with them anymore, but I've really been loving the Eventide H9 series plugin. So they're kind of like the H9 is their little like guitar stomp box thing. I've been using these things a ton. There's a bunch of them. Black Hole I've used a ton. Crystals I've used a ton. This Tricera chorus I've been using a lot when I need a chorus. Like these are really, the Shimmer Verb's awesome. I don't know if they sell these in just a bundle. Like I have the whole everything bundle from them, but if they sell just these H9 ones in a bundle, I'd definitely check that out. Definitely check that out. So, all right. Let me rub my eyes because my eyes are burning. My eyes give out before my ears do these days. Not sure what that's all about. Getting old, I guess. All right. Well, I'll take my glasses off now that I don't need to look at the screen as much. Let's go into the chat here. Great trick with patchwork. Mind is churning on ideas. Yeah, that's the cool thing about that plugin is like you can. I'd say there's 2 real big benefits about it. Number one, there's scenarios where you're going to be mixing and matching things, right? That's kind of been the I guess the common thread through what we've done tonight, because the David Bendith plugin is very much in that vein of having different options that you can either quickly A/B in one plugin or mix and match together to make a new thing altogether. But with the patchwork, it's not always about using 5 different things at the same time. Sometimes it's about auditioning the 5 things that you probably otherwise maybe wouldn't have auditioned or isn't as easy to A/B because the time that it takes to load a different plugin, and you're not actually able to A/B. So that plugin for me is almost as powerful of a comparison tool as it is a mixer. And so I've already been using it in such a way that I'll load different things in it to compare them. Like when I'm doing my experimenting, I've started loading even compressors. I'll load 5 different compressors in, and then I'll just go through them, hearing them, being like, oh, I like that one. I like that one. Like I used to duplicate tracks, and then if you start actually doing a mix with one of them and you want to A/B it again, it's like you haven't done those moves. Like you wouldn't do a mix with 5 vocal tracks with 4 of them muted. But with that on, you can. And it's very easy 3/4 the way through your mix, be like, wonder what this would sound like if I switched out the 1176 for a tube tech or something, right? And so having them in there and being able to A/B is really cool. And then also being able to then actually, if you do find that you like a parallel mix and match, it obviously does that very well. So, yeah. Yes, Studio Rack. Yep. John, for sure. We talked about that a little bit. So now Studio Verse, yep, you totally can. There's just a few more limitations. I really like Studio Verse. The actual preset library from Studio Verse is pretty awesome. And so if you haven't checked that out, let me go back to this real quick. Oh no, that's not it. That's not what I want. What's that? Where's the window? How do I get rid of that? Hello. Then I got to put my glasses back on. Oh, you just click on the middle of it. Duh. They need to put an X on that. Come on, Waves. Yeah. So if you, this is probably how it looks when most people load it. You can start searching for different sounds. You can start, you can play audio, and it will tell you you'll analyze what audio you use. But you can also search by, if there's a mixer that you really like spending your Friday evenings with, you can actually go here and search names and stuff and see if anything pops. Oh no, I didn't do it. Ah ha ha. No chains found. Oh, there it is. There are all my chains. Anyways, you can actually search and find other mixers that and probably listen to and like. You can go in there and find the chains that they've put together. That a lot of them, and I'll speak from experience. When Waves asked me to do some chains, I actually went into sessions and looked at mixes that I'd done where I knew I had 4 or 5 things on an insert, and then I would duplicate that track and rebuild it and copy settings and stuff. So a lot of my chains are actually from mixes where I rebuilt them in Studioverse. And I think a lot of the other guys did that as well. So if you want some of those chains as starting points, Studioverse is really cool. Even if you just use it as a starting point to get some ideas, it's pretty awesome. So back to the chat. Have I tried the Synergy modular stuff? I'm assuming you're talking about the guitar amp stuff. Only when it first came out, and I was really impressed back then. I can only imagine it's gotten better. I kind of feel like with the Synergy stuff, I don't know, this is me just making stuff up. This is not reality, but I'm kind of like, if I'm just going to do the Synergy stuff, I'll just stick with the Fractal. And to be honest with you, I use the Fractal majority of the time anyways, but, I think part of the allure of amps is having these big behemoths in the room and with, and yeah, I know guys who've got the Synergy and they've got their stacks of their modules, and that's cool too. I guess it's the difference between little lunchbox modules and racks full of gear. One of them just makes me feel more inspired. Okay. Soundtech has been used by Randy on Evanescence mix. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, Randy used to use a Soundtech. I used to use we had a Soundtech at the Chop Shop. We had a 432 C9, I think it was. I can't remember. But that was that was always on the mix bus. And what wonder who started the Soundtech thing. Like, Randy's has Soundtech. So, Scott Humphrey worked with Randy, and they were friends, and I'm sure, I don't know, Bob Rock might have used a Soundtech. I don't know. Seems like there was like a pocket of guys that all were using those big Soundtechs. And I'm curious where that started. You know what? Where it might have started. This would be interesting rabbit hole to go down. All of those guys used George Marino for mastering at Sterling in New York. I'm wondering if George Marino was using it, and then all those guys, when they would have him they would see that thing in his mastering studio. Interesting. That's another thing I'll have to ask about. How much RAM are you running to use that? I got a lot of RAM. I don't know what it's using, but I got a lot of RAM. I think this computer has 128 gigs of RAM. Yeah, I was about to say, I think I'm using a bunch of it for disk playback, only 16. But yeah, I've got a lot of RAM. Patchwork plugin, yep. Subharmonic synthesizer. You are, as me, a fan of Randy Staub. Do you ever use this stuff for bass? Yeah, I'll actually show you really quickly. It's part of my bass setup. Whether I use it or not is song specific. Or I thought my OBS just crashed. It just disappeared. All right, so let me go over to my bass here. So I use one called Pro Sub, which is the Avid one, and then I use a MIDI track to trigger it. So I basically take the MIDI, derive the bass. Sorry, I get a MIDI track that's derived from the DI, and so that way Pro Sub follows the note. So the problem was I used to have a DBX 160, the same way that the same one that Randy used, and the problem that I would find is if you soloed it, you could hear it almost like warbling between notes, like it would sometimes hover on a note when it was synthesizing. It would synthesize an E or an E flat or an E or an E flat or an E or an E flat, and it would kind of like go between them. And so I found using this plugin and being able to trigger it with the MIDI keeps the note a lot more solid. So anybody who's not on either like their studio system or headphones is probably not going to be able to hear this, but I'll turn this up so you guys can try. If you turn it off, there's all the size. I mean, it's that you can blow some shit up with. It's so fun. You got to be careful with that. Careful with the subsynth. Careful. It's awesome though. Okay. What else we got? Only bass, or do I like to add it to the kick? I usually don't add it to the kick, believe it or not. I'm usually not finding, I think with samples nowadays, like if I need more low end, I just go to a sample that's got all that sub in it instead of using like the live kick through the sub. Or we obviously, we a lot of the time we'll record like a sub mic, like a Yamaha sub or NS10 wired backwards. So we already kind of do that. I typically am not finding, like these days I'm rolling off low end on kicks. I'm not trying to make an octave lower of it. So, but it's something that I should revisit. I should revisit that. It's been a while since I've tried it. So, oh, you guys are so welcome. You guys are so welcome. I love doing this. I'm I'm really making an effort to kind of scheduling the time and making the time to do it because it's always fun. So, any alternative to subharmonic you recommend? I got a Sub Destroyer by JST. The other one that I used to use a lot was the BX sub, which is I think they modeled this after the Subsynth. This one, I think they modeled this after the 120, the DBX 120. But again, I can't trigger it with MIDI, so that's my only problem. If they would make, and this one's got a couple extra features on it that I do really like. If they could make this follow a MIDI note, I would go back to using this one. I did like the sound of this one, and I liked the way it worked. I was sick and tired of not being able to turn it up as loud as I wanted because it would just go go crazy shit. So, audio conversion, audio to MIDI. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you go Melodyne. Now it's super easy to do. You know, like you can just grab your DI track and drag it down onto a MIDI track or an instrument track, and it spits it out for you. Now, you do have to go in and kind of fix things. It's never perfect, but it gets you a lot of the way there. So, for instance, like this song is doon 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 doon. It missed some of those, right? So, like you're gonna have to fix those. There's a few of them. Oh, sorry, wrong button. These are supposed to be all eighth notes, and it's not. But in terms of the subsynth, it's a B. It's a B. The note is a B. So even if it's just a solid note, I'm fine with that because it's going to make sure that it stays on the note that it's supposed to be. But if you guys are going to be triggering other stuff under the bass DI, like actually using, a trillion or anything like that, then you're gonna have to go in and manually fix it up a little bit. So. Yep, they modeled it after DBX. Well, somebody tell Plugin Alliance to stop bitching about other people's plugins not being awesome, and then we're focusing on theirs and give me a MIDI input on that BX subsynth. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna wrap up. I'll maybe do a few more questions if there are any rolling in, but I am spent, and because I'm no longer at my house, exactly. How did they make the subsynth any good? Because they don't have the original code, right? So it can't be any good. That's hilarious, Shane. Yeah, that's exactly my point from earlier. That's exactly my point. So again, I want to wrap up by quickly pointing everybody over to my website to sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. The course, the production course, yet to be named. We'll figure it out, but I keep on calling it the workshop. But that's going to be coming out soon. So yeah, the best way to stay in touch is to just sign up for the newsletter. Follow me on socials. I'll like I said, I try not to be completely obnoxious with sending stuff out, but I do want you guys to stay in touch, and I've got a lot of cool stuff kind of on the go over the next 2 to 4 months that I'm going to start on a regular basis, kind of giving you guys a little bit more goodies that you can play around with, and a little more knowledge nuggets here and there. So definitely go over to the website, chrisbaseford.com. I think there's a sign up link in the description below. And yeah, I'll see. Let's see. There's another couple of questions coming in here. It's 4:30 at Poland. Wow, holy shit! You are a trooper for staying up that late. What computer and interface do I use? I've got a Mac Studio M1 loaded to the gills, and I use the Matrix Studio, the Avid Matrix Studio, with an HDX card, and so that's. With all the processing power of the computer now and one HDX card and I've got 3 UA expansions. I've got a card and 2 boxes. I'm really not running out of power anymore. Like I said earlier, like the compatibility and the stability is almost more of an issue than power. So I'm crashing not because I'm running out of power. I'm crashing because plugins have bugs. So there you go. All right. Thank you all so much. And by all means, if you guys have any more questions, follow-ups, put them in the comments below. I try to get to those every couple days. I have a peek at them and try to reply right away. And like I said, you can also feel free to reply to the newsletters. Those come to me, and I see every one of them that come in. Whether or not I reply is just a matter of how busy I am. And like I said, I try to get to it. So trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it for tonight. Have a great weekend. Hopefully everybody is staying safe and healthy. And until next time, take care.